This Mecha Invasion Constructicon team has me so freaking excited. Or maybe it's an offshoot of Generation Toy, I don't know, it kind of has that vibe. I really like the Constructicons, and by extension, Devastator, and at least half of the team in any given set usually has neat standalone toys. I also really like it when designs deviate from those same iterations we've been seeing for the past decade. Yes, I've said this a lot, and it's probably annoying every time I restate it, but I've gotten so tired of the near constant G1 referential stuff. It's great that it's there, but I'm tired. So of course I'm interested in a Constructicon set that's doing its own stylistic thing. And much like Generation Toy's Gravity Builder, or the oversized Jinbao knockoff that I actually own, this set deviates hard from G1. And if this is your first time hearing about them, that deviation is way more extreme than you might be expecting right now. But we'll get to that. First though, let's look at these vehicles. These are definitely stylized, but also very recognizable four-wheeled iterations of Scrapper and Mixmaster, or I guess Loader and Mixer if you want to go by the third-party names. First off, I really like this sort of chalky, almost muted neon green that they used for the bulk of the color scheme. It feels close to the G1 toys, and I know I just spent a little bit talking about how much I'm not interested in G1 accuracy, but this has more to do with the colors just being pleasing to look at. And I find homaging via color to be way more agreeable to me than compromising the robot mode, vehicle mode, and/or transformation just for the sake of, oh look, it's G1 accurate. This is not a dig at fans toys, but it's definitely a dig at fans toys. I also like how, while some of that typical purple is also in there, it's almost hidden away in the alt modes. So what you see is mostly just the green along with some nice silver and gunmetal accents. Also a few really nice pops of black and yellow caution striping. I really like that. It's the kind of thing we normally have to wait for a repro label set to see, but it's already here on both of them. I really like how details like the lights above Loader's cab and a lot of the venting has been picked out with paint, and how they use dark metallic for Mixer's grille but a lighter silver on the fender section so the details stand out rather than blend together or look unpainted. I also just want to say both of these roll really well. We got these somewhat rubbery tires. Loader in particular is, wow, that rolling action is very nice. Should have named him Roller. Oh wait. Now, yes, the vehicle modes are a tiny bit compromised. Particularly Loader with how the front section just kind of cuts off after the wheels and gets way more narrow with no tapering or an attempt to bulk out the rear section in order to make the silhouette more consistent. I don't really care about this at all, but it is something I've noticed. Mixer, meanwhile, isn't dotted with quite as many individual paint details as Loader in vehicle mode, but what's here is still cool. Like that previously mentioned two-tone front, or the silver bars along the side next to the mixing drum, right over here. That drum, it doesn't spin due to how everything transforms, which is bound to disappoint a few folks, and that's understandable. But there is a good reason for this not actually rotating, as I mentioned, so we'll discuss that in a bit. Loader's bucket does move, though. You get a total of 3 hinges, here, here, and then here. And that lets you position it pretty much however you want beyond making something that looks completely physically impossible for a vehicle like this to pull off. I'm also noticing how Mixer has a 02 on the drum, while Loader has a 01 printed on the back. I'm not sure numbers like this were necessary, but I don't know, I kind of dig it. Sort of gives me a Sentai or old school mecha cartoon vibe. In terms of size, they're both way bigger than a Modern Deluxe and larger than a Voyager. I want to say they're roughly liter-sized. Roughly. As far as I can tell, this set isn't bothered about being Chug or MP scaled, so I don't know. Point is, they're nice and big without being completely gigantic. At this point, I would be going into the robot modes, but for change, I'm actually going to do the combined modes, at least for these two. I don't know if I'm going to do it for the other two pairs of the set that remain, but normally I save it for getting to the combined mode eventually. But yeah, we'll do it now because it's very simple for the two of them. And this is where one of the big deviations for this Constructicon set comes in. So we're going to do Mixer first, because Mixer is the easier one of the two. I mean, they're both easy, but Mixer is extremely easy. So what you want to do is take this piece here, it tabs in right here. So you just want to untab that, and then this slides up. And once that's slid up, this piece swings around and just kind of settles into place over this wheel here. It doesn't really lock in, but it settles. So again, untab this, slide it out, swing it down, and that will kind of, I mean, it does hold. There's this little, it's kind of hard to see, but there's this little shaped semicircular bit here that actually goes around the center of the tire. So that helps to keep this from like flopping around. It's not super strong, but it's not going to come out. Anyway, do that. Now I want to pull up the drum, and with the drum pulled up, this piece will fold up like that, just to get out of the way. So this folds up, rotates 180 degrees. Now, going to rotate the cab section 90 degrees. And actually, yeah, we want to do it that way. And now this piece, I've seen a few different ways of doing this. I think it's supposed to go this way, but I prefer to do it kind of like this. The problem is this bit here, this dark gray bit up here, does push against the green plastic here. It's not anything I think is going to stress or break. It might like end up pushing and slightly deforming that little semicircular section of the green just a little bit over time. I super don't care. I just think it looks better doing it this way, but well, you'll see what I mean when we get to it. So now this is what I guess you could call the twist if you're not familiar with this set. So I'm going to open up the mixing drum and pull out. That's not a foot. So you pull that out. This now comes back down and clips back over the wheel section. And then the fist comes in, and these little tabs here go into these little slots back here. So this all accordions in and snaps into place. And then you just unfurl the fingers. And there is Mixer as an arm. There's also a little in and out joint right here. The gun storage, they both do have gun, like all the figures in the set have gun storage. I don't have the other four, but I've seen videos. They have gun storage. This gun does get in the way of this joint here, but this is also, it combines with the other weapons for the combine mode, so this isn't going to really be here for the combine mode. But yeah, he's an arm. Mixmaster, or in this case Mixer, is an arm this time around. And that's just such an interesting departure. But he's just half of this set. We also have to do Loader. And Loader's transformation into his limb mode, not as easy, but still pretty easy. So you want to rotate this 90 degrees. The cab bit here just kind of untabs and swings up. I should probably do that before rotating that just to get a little more room. But this swings up. This assembly here kind of slides up and out. And with that done, we can untab all of this, untab all of this. This swings out. And with this swung out, now this fist swings out, and then this all swings back in. And it will all tab back together. There are these little tabs on this center black piece here that these other black pieces will tab over. And that helps to hold everything together. Green pieces tab together. And then this just slides back down. You kind of want to angle these so that they can get around that corner there. But these angle down, and then just kind of have to get it past that little edge there, and then this slides into place. This comes back down, pegs back in, and then just rotate this 90 degrees, give it a bend, rotate this 90 degrees, unfurl the fingers, and that's it for Loader's limb mode. And as you can see, this version of Scrapper also becomes an arm. So there they are. Surprise! This Devastator dares to ask, what if Scrapper and Mixmaster were arms instead of legs? And I flipping adore it for that. Like I've said many, many times, I like it when familiar characters get more experimental designs, and I feel like it hasn't gotten much more experimental than this when it comes to Devastator. What's more, they actually work well as arms, and the transformations are shockingly simple. They also look pretty cool as arms. I like having Mixmaster's drum along the outside of the forearm, like I said, and to be honest, Loader as an arm doesn't look all that different from Bone Crusher, what with the scoops sitting right above the shoulder instead of the bulldozer plow or whatever that thing is called. It's a similar shape. This is kind of looking ahead, but unfortunately Long Haul and Hook, I don't remember their third-party names currently, they do not deviate from their combined mode positions at all, so Hook still becomes the upper torso, Long Haul still becomes the lower torso down to the thighs, and that is a little disappointing to me. But swapping 4 out of 6 is still awesome, and I can't wait to get the rest of the team, because the videos I've seen for Hook and Long Haul, and now Bone Crusher and Scavenger, because of how long it took me to record this, it really makes them seem fun to mess with. Okay, quick trip back to their vehicle modes, and now it is time to turn them into proper robots. But real quick, before I do that, gotta plug the Patreon and the coffee, links to both down in the description as well as at the end of the video. That's it. That's all I got. Also, if you want to support the channel, typical YouTube stuff of like, comment, share, subscribe also helps. Now, we are going to start with Loader because, well, he's number 1. It says so right there. So we are going to begin the transformation with Loader. And as I said, these are very simple transformations, but that's part of their charm. So first thing, going to straighten out the buckets so that it's just straight up like that. I'm going to untab these wheels from the sides here. There is just this big tab right there and slot right there. So just untab from there, then split the bucket and the rest of this stuff because it's actually pegged around this metal piece here. Metal piece comes down. These bits come down. And these can just kind of flop like that. Want to rotate the buckets around. Take these little hidden flaps here and bring those out, and they will swing around, and this little tab will tab over this little bit here, or this little slot rather, will tab over the tab there. Same thing on this side, bring it around, tap that in. All right, and that is the lower body. Yes, the lower body. Now for the rest of it, I'm going to rotate, nope, not going to rotate. I'm going to unplug this, and this is very similar to the arm transformation, at least part way. So untap that, swing this up and out. I'll bring this down the rest of the way. And while we're at it, I'm going to swing this out as well. When I first got this, I want to say this real quick. When I first got this joint here was a little bit tight, so it was tricky getting this strut to rotate out. That was really easy to fix. There's just a little screw right in there, and I just gave that screw a tiny little turn to the left in order to loosen it up. And now, as you saw, once the head is in there, it's actually not that hard to get it out. It's still solid. Like, this isn't, it's not moving super easily, but it keeps it from, you know, being a pain to get out. Anyway, do that. Split all this. This will swing down. And with this swung down, now we can bring this black piece up and rotate it in, and then rotate up the rest of the way, and that kind of fills in what will become the top of the shoulder. This can now swing down. Rotate this 180 degrees. Rotate the fist, and then bring it down. And that is one arm. And it's the exact same deal with the other arm. Bring this down, bring this piece up and in, rotate this, rotate the fist, bring that down, and we are done with the arms. Now, going to bring this up a little bit so that we can actually rotate the waist. Arms can come down. And before we finish everything off, we need to get the gun out, because as I said, they all have gun storage. So this piece just pegs in here. It's a little peg hole there, peg there. What I find is you do not want to peg this in all the way. If you peg it in all the way, it becomes a pain in the butt to take out. So I just peg it in very slightly, enough that it won't fall out, but that way it's pretty easy to just take it out, rather than having to get like a spudger or something. It's not impossible to remove if you plug it in all the way, it's just so much easier to not do that. Anyway, with that done, fold the fist in, and then fold this piece down so that the fist is now sitting entirely inside the chest cavity. fold this up on this other hinge up here. So not this hinge, but this other hinge. So this comes up, and then this actually folds back in and collapses, and these tabs will go into these little slots just behind the shoulders. And the entire cab section will just kind of sit over this piece here. Come on. There we go. So that kind of snugs in there. And with that snugged in, the head comes down and tabs into that little slot there. And that is loader. And last thing, we're going to take the gun and just unfold the barrels. And yeah, this will go in his hand. We'll look at the gun later. But there we go. There is loader or scrapper in robot mode. Very straightforward transformation, very effective, and we'll just talk about that a little bit more later. Because now we've got to do mixer. And again, this is going to start off similarly to the limb mode transformation. You want to untab this little fuel tank thing from the side here, slide this up, swing it around, and have this little bit in here go around the wheel, so that will keep it from collapsing, or not collapsing rather, swinging around. Don't want it swinging around, so do that. Take the barrel or mixing drum, bring it up, fold the little chute in, and just leave the mixing drum like this. I'm going to untab these bits up here, and these pieces will also untab from this gray piece. Swing this out and up on a double hinge, flip out what becomes the fist, and there's one arm. Very simple arm transformation on this guy. Bring that up, bring it around, swing out the fist. There we go. This panel comes down, and there is a slot right up here that tabs over this tab here, and that tabs in pretty securely. I usually have to use a spudger to get that out, but I've found that it also works to use this joint and just kind of brace up here and just kind of rotate this back and forth. And as you rotate it, it'll start to work that tab out. And then once the tab's worked out, you can pull it up like that. So that's what I end up doing to get that if I don't want to use a spudger. Anyway, that can just all stay like this. Going to split, no, we're not going to split. We're going to straighten out the legs. So, because these actually tab in. If you bring this up a little bit, you can see there are tabs here and a tab right in here. That tab goes in there, these tabs go back here. So we want to untab these first. Then we want to swing all of this up, bring the legs down. And what I find works best with these hinges is, I think the intention is to have it set the green hinges are as far forward as they'll go, because I think that centers the knees with the legs a little bit better. We want to do that. Rotate the waist 180 degrees, and that's a look. The drum can now come back, or come up rather, not down, come up, and it will peg into place back here. And conveniently, it's just the right dimensions that it doesn't impede the waist swivel at all. That's cool. So do all that. Now we can split the cab apart, separate out the legs, slide the thighs in, and they will tab into place so that they're now straight. And going back, you obviously want to disconnect them and slide them in like that. So slide them like that. And also there's the gun. Gun doesn't transform, so we'll just put that in his hand in a second. Now the leg transformation, very simple but very cool. Really like how this works. So what you do is you can come in here and like use a fingernail or something to pull up this black piece. What I find is actually easier is to just grab this piece and pull it down, because just physics will push this out of the way, because it's not like pegged in or anything. It just kind of sits so that it gets out of the way. So just do that. This comes down. I want to use this little tab here, this little bit here, to bring out the heel. And now this is really cool. It's very simple, but it's very cool how the front nose section of the cab just folds in. Just a single hinge, it folds in, and this tab here tabs into the bit here, so this just comes in and clicks in like that. Then this comes back down, and it nestles into this spot here, and that prevents this piece from shifting back out. I really don't think this is entirely necessary, but I appreciate its inclusion, I guess, or the thought behind it. Anyway, other leg, same deal. Bring out the foot, bring out the heel, make sure that piece is up all the way, fold this in until, fold it in until it tabs in, bring this down, and that's it. There is Mixer in robot mode. And again, very simple transformation, but very appreciable. These guys do some really cool engineering. They just have really cool engineering. I like it. Now, getting to these robot modes is a little more involved than the ARB modes, sure, but it's still shockingly simple for a third-party figure, or even for modern mainline stuff, really, and I am definitely a fan. The way Loader's legs unfurl from the entire front of the alt mode, because it's literally just his legs, is kinda genius. It's like 3 or 4 steps in total while still being really effective. And I like how almost half of the back end of the vehicle is just arms. Mixer's transformation feels a little more familiar in the upper body, particularly in how the arms work. It kinda makes me think of a simplified version of Mixing Truck from the Gravity Builders set. But it's just the arms that make me think that, really. The legs are super cool, though. Very straightforward, but the way the nose of the cab folds in like that to reshape the lower legs is amazing, and it's like 2 parts total. Another thing I find really cool about these robot modes is how they're still familiar enough, even though they're such a big departure from the normal designs. Or at least Loader. Mixer is much more obvious, of course, thanks to the mixing drum sitting behind his head, as usual, and the truck cab for shins isn't new either, but I do adore the way the truck cab collapses in, and we end up with the wheels and the windows in the front, rather than the roof of the cab section. It's much more visually interesting, and it still comes off as Mixmaster. And of course, he's littered with small details that are either color-separated plastic or outright painted, way more so than the vehicle mode. The legs look fantastic, but not just because of the way the cab works, although that is sweet, as I've said many times. The two-toed look of the feet, along with the painted piston detailing and the combination of silver and gunmetal in the thighs, is also great. It really makes it look like a bit of the robot's skeleton is peeking through some plating on the upper legs. Everything from the waist up also looks really good. It just doesn't wow me like the legs do. Sorry. But I do really like the sculpting and paint in the chest, especially that circular gold detail, whatever that's supposed to be. The arms are maybe a bit more basic, but there are still plenty of details to appreciate. And I really like how they used gunmetal on the underside of the mixing drum just behind the robot head. It adds just a touch of extra visual interest instead of something like a blank green wall of color without actually blending into the head. Loader is the much bigger departure between the two, obviously. Instead of becoming a backpack, the shovel or scoop or whatever ends up as feet, and while this does take a little getting used to, I'm definitely into it. They're nice and stable too, by the way. Just like with Mixer, there's plenty of color separation between the plastics and paint apps all over. You get a little of that layered look in the thighs between the silver and gunmetal again, and it's less pronounced here. That said, the little bit of die-cast metal you can see in the knees is super cool. It's this little piston detail right in here. If I bend this, you can see it's just right there. That's die-cast. I'll admit, I'm not a massive fan of the wheel well saddlebag hip skirts, but they're really easy to ignore even once you notice them, because the rest of this robot is so much more visually interesting. Moving up from there, the chest is spectacular and full of mechanical-looking details picked out in different metallic colors that all stand out pretty well on the purple. I particularly like how there's that little piston detail in the center of the chest that kind of lines up and mimics a similar piece at the front of the waist section. And of course I'm into the wheels flanking either side of the upper body. How could I not be? The arms are less basic than Mixer's, but they don't look too busy either, which is a neat trick. The way these black pieces from the lower rear portion of the alt mode fold around to flatten out and fill in the tops of the shoulders is really cool, like I said during that portion of the video. Looking at the head sculpts, I can't help but think about the Gravity Builder team again. These definitely are not the same designs, but there's something familiar to the aesthetic approach being used here. Sharper angles, maybe a little more greebly than usual, that sort of thing. Loader looks like a suitable scrapper with the visor and hint of a nose mouth plate. while Mixer looks like he's trying to show his team pride without being too obnoxious about it, i.e. the slightly Decepticon logo-esque sculpt around the top of the head and brow. If you get the guns involved, either one, they have a little magnet hiding in the end there. Just tap it to the foreheads. Come on. There we go. And boom! Light up eyes. It is pretty darn effective, too. Interesting. It seems like there's a timer on Loader's eyes and not Mixer's. Huh. Anyway, articulation between these two is very similar, but I will point out the differences. Both have ball-jointed heads, but the ranges are vastly different, so good thing I started here, I guess. Loader can get pretty expressive with the up and down and rotate 360. Okay, maybe not all the way around 360. Oh, wait, no, can kind of force it. But he doesn't really get much tilt. Mixer gets loads of tilt and can look up a lot if you move the mixing drum. Like, that is significant. But he can barely angle the head down, and because of the shape of the neck joint, it forces the head up a little bit when you start to turn it. The arms between the two of them are comparable, though. You get full 360 rotation, around 90 degrees going out, bicep rotation, and over 90 degrees of elbow bend. Except Loader has wrist swivels, which are hampered by the shape of the forearm, but you can work around it, and you can even, if you want to do like more extreme stuff, bring this piece up, then rotate the fist, then bring it back down. While Mixer's fists can't rotate, but because of the transformation, they can angle inward. Either one of them can rotate 360 at the waist, and I find it more impressive for Mixer because the mixing drum just straight up does not get in the way. That's really clever design. But Loader can also use the combined mode elbow joint as an ab crunch. Mixer's joint is angled the other way though, so your choices are to either move the mixing drum so you can angle it backwards, or intentionally mistransform it at the point where that can't actually tab into the midsection, and that gives you an ab crunch. And it looks okay in poses, but it gives him kind of a beer belly if he's just standing there. Hips are about the same too, with 90 degrees forward and back and out for both figures. Loader gets a little more thigh rotation range than Mixer. Mixer's kind of, because of the sculpt, stops going out here and stops going in here, while Loader's can just go a little bit further, but also the sculpt still gets in the way. But due to their respective transformations, they can each rotate their knees, or bend their knees rather, almost all the way to 180. Like, that is intense. You'd think Loader is the clear winner with ankle movement, but they're actually somewhat evenly matched. Yes, Loader can move forward and back, and at greater ranges, can tilt in past 90, and you get rotation at the ankle. But Mixer's no slouch. Doesn't tilt in quite as far, but can tilt out, which is something Loader can't do. You don't get rotation, but despite how Mixer's leg is designed, you do still get forward and backward motion on those ankles, which is completely unnecessary. Like, it's not for the transformation, that's just in there. So on paper, Loader offers the better ankle articulation, but I think Mixer's range, despite his lower leg bulk, is what makes it more impressive. The only real complaints I have about the articulation for either of these figures is the hip ratchets. They're not terrible, I just wish there were either more detents going forward and back and out, or that they were just friction. And given how this combiner is going to work, I don't really see a reason for the hips to have ratchets in the first place, and I'd like having a bit more freedom to pull off subtle angles. It's mostly a me thing, though. It's not like they're stock straight to guitar power stance levels of unforgiving. It still bugs me that modern figures still do that. I don't understand why. Now, robot mode height is weird. Not bad, just kind of weird. These guys are probably a bit taller than you were expecting. They tower over modern deluxes and Voyagers, but they're also noticeably taller than a Leader, too. I want to say they're almost MP scale, or at least they're pretty close to something like Acoustic Wave, anyway. To be clear, this isn't a bad thing in my mind, but I know scale is important to other collectors out there. And, well, I'm sorry if this is a deal breaker. This is just how tall they are. Okay, this has gone on long enough. I'm tired of writing, and I'm probably also tired of talking at this point. Yes, I am. This set is awesome. It's doing some really cool and interesting stuff with the Constructicons and Devastator. The designs are neat, and the transformations, at least for these two, we're still waiting on the other two sets at the moment, they are really smooth and clever. On top of all that, there's the price, which I usually don't bother talking about that often, but I do think it's a factor here. These figures were $90 for the pair. Not each, $90 for both of them together. So $45 a piece. That's less than the cost of a modern leader when you break it down like that. $90 certainly isn't impulse buy territory, but it's amazing how much excellent toy you get for less than $100. From a third-party company, no less. These two cost almost $25 less as a set than Dreamstar Toys' version of Scrapper does on his own. I want that Scrapper, by the way. I really dig the design. It's just I need to sell more stuff on eBay to afford it. So yeah, not only are these figures cool and excellent and fun and unique for once, they're affordable. You know, comparably. Anyway, that's enough of that. What do you all think of these two? Or what we've seen of the set? Or this approach to Devastator in general? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank everybody for watching, and I will be talking to you about more toys next time.